We are live broadcasting from Wildfire Sports Studios for NBC Sports Philadelphia. Welcome to the 4th and John Show, episode number 80. Boys and girls, all right, okay, here we go, 2 in a row. That's the first time that's happened, 2 in a row. We go from winning the Super Bowl and celebrating a Lombardi to celebrating, 2 in a row. But let's get a little pumped here. Let's get a little excited. And I understand it's against the lowly New York Giants, who just beat the Bears, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. And it was against the Mark Sanchez-led Washington Redskins, who, for the better part of the year, led the division on the strength of their running game and their defense, but that's neither here nor there. Speaking of neither here nor there, the Eagles at 6-6 are 1 win away in Jerry World from being tied for the NFC East. Despite the ups and downs, despite the injuries, despite all of that, it's neither here nor there because we're 1 win away from being tied. Now look, it's not going to be easy. There's 4 games left, and Dallas so far has won their last 4 games against Philadelphia, against Atlanta, and against the New Orleans Saints. Ooh, that's tough. And looking at the Eagles' schedule, they're at Dallas, at the Rams, versus Houston, and at Washington. That is no cakewalk. 3 of the next 4 games for the Eagles are against division leaders. Ooh, that's tough. 3 of the next 4 games for the Eagles are on the road. That's tough. That's a tough path. Meanwhile, you look at the Dallas Cowboys. 4 of the next 4 games for the Cowboys are against opponents with a 500 or lower winning percentage. Sub 500 teams the next 4 games. And 3 of the next 4 games for the Dallas Cowboys are at home. The Eagles are out of time. We can celebrate a win against the Giants. We can celebrate a win against the Redskins. But unless they're able to do it in Jerry World this week, right here, right now, and tie this son of a gun up, it's all for nothing. It's time to beat Dallas. Mr. Gail Saunders, Eagle Sessions on Twitter. How are you feeling today, sir?
Doing great. We got a dub back-to-back weeks, but I'm going to start with the quote. If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you have never done. And I thinking about the Philadelphia Eagles, and we had a lot of firsts. And I'm not talking first downs. I'm talking the first time the Eagles this season have had back-to-back wins. First time that the Eagles' offensive line has not given up a sack.
Wow.
I mean, the first time Darren Sproles has scored a touchdown since December 22nd, 2016.
Whoa.
First time Golden Tate scores a touchdown in the Eagles uniform. Last week it was, I don't know, it doesn't fit. We might have to quit, but hey, he might be too legit to quit. Hey. First time the Eagles get an interception in back-to-back weeks. Nate Gary comes up with his first career interception. I mean, first time that the Eagles' offensive line has looked solid. Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson. I mean, what else do we got? First time the Eagles scored in the first quarter since week 6.
Yes, opening drive.
So a lot of firsts here. And what I'm talking about is this team is finally starting to gel, finally starting to flash. And that's what you like to see from a team. And also, going back to Darren Sproles and talking about what Darren Sproles means to this team. What is your why at this point in the season? You're playing for the next man. Listening to the guys talk about what Darren Sproles means to them, the running back group talking about how much of a leader he is, Carson Wentz talking about the spark plug in this offense, it goes back to fighting for the next man. And at this point of the season, I mean, it's put up or shut up. I mean, you got to win this next game. This is the season right here. This is what they've been working for. They got their groove back. And now we've been talking about nothing above the NFC East. We're still there. And in worst case scenario, it's nothing above the NFC wild card. Perhaps.
Could be with a couple of losses over the weekend to some key teams who own some tiebreakers over the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to go over the playoff scenarios in a minute, or at least the way it currently stands right now. It's a little interesting. But speaking of first, Gail, All right? The first game against the Cowboys, that's in the past. Those were all great firsts. I didn't realize we had so many firsts in that game, but now it's the second game against the Cowboys. It's about how you respond now. That's what it's all about. You got to beat the Dallas Cowboys. Joining us in studio, Krystle Rich, a fellow NBC Sports Philadelphia with the Sixers Outsiders. She's about to drop some Philadelphia Eagles knowledge in the studio today. How are you, sweetheart?
Guys, thank you for having me. I'm doing well. A little cold. Just got back from Africa, so I'm over here shivering.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's about to get hot. We about to play the Cowboys. Game 2, our second time, and we need to get this W. Now let me tell you something. The 2 games that we lost, Cowboys, Saints, we ran the ball. Josh Adams ran the ball 7 times. Mm-hmm. I think Dougie listened to us in the media. We were mad about that. Mm-hmm. Guess what? Come against the Giants, he ran the ball 22 times. This one against the Redskins, 20 times. That will be an integral factor in if we beat the Cowboys, if he stays consistent with that run with Josh Adams. Of course, we got Darren Sproles back in the lineup. Hello, welcome back. Thank you.
The GOAT.
We can't even talk about Darren Sproles without even paying some respect to Jason Kelce. Did you not see him block Mason Foster on that drive where Sproles was breaking tackles to get to the end zone?
Amazing.
Thank you, Jason. We appreciate that.
Gail, speaking of first, that was the first time we got schooled on our own show on the opening monologue. We just got schooled. We just got taken to school.
Hot fire.
By Krystle on the opening monologue. Well done. Breaking it out. The Josh Adams love, my man crush, by the way, for training camp.
Since the beginning of the season, yeah.
Beginning of the season. Hollywood Hearn, you were there last night. You were there at the tailgate, a special appearance.
I was at the tailgate. It's pretty strategic. You make me follow Krystle like that. But.
Yeah. Right. Good luck with that.
A little sauced up at the tailgate.
I was having fun at the tailgate. I had to stay away from the cameras when you guys jumped up on stage with Monday Night Football. Which was awesome. That was really cool. And I wanted to send a special shout out to Mama Rock for hooking me up with that ticket last night, and the rest of your family. That was very nice of them.
You're welcome.
It was a hell of a game to go to. We're still alive. We're alive by another week, and there's nothing more exciting than Dallas week. Growing up, like a lot of people that I know, their biggest rivalry is the Giants, just because of that up 95. You know, they're the closest rivalry to us. But I love talking crap to Dallas Cowboys fans.
Nothing better.
Nothing makes me happier. And I think that it took long enough, but the Eagles have finally found their identity in this team. And that would be just that. First of all, let's stick with Josh Adams. Can we establish that?
Oh,
he's been getting 20-plus carries the past 2 weeks. And Doug, is it me or is he a coach that, to you, listens to sports talk radio? Because it seems it's a reflection. Like every single week, it's like a reflection of what was talked about in the week of sports talk, and he always seems to change up his game plan accordingly.
I feel like Dougie listens in.
I think so,
I feel like he does, because he came at a reporter one week and says, "You're not with me watching 80 hours of film," and then the next week, Josh Adams gets more carries.
Right.
I mean, come on.
He doesn't want to admit it, but he's definitely out there listening.
No one wants to admit it. They're listening to us, though.
Yeah.
You know.
Eagles, we touched on this on an earlier podcast early on in the year. I mean, people talk about Eagles fans about being obnoxious and rambunctious and rowdy at times, but they are one of the most intelligent fan bases in the NFL. And going into that Giants week, remember, we were pounding the table. Listen, these corners got to play press up against these receivers, and then all of a sudden you see it. And the Eagles got to have a balanced run-to-pass ratio, and then all of a sudden you see it. I feel that the Redskins' victory does not feel hollow. Up at MetLife against the New York Giants, felt a little hollow. Yeah. Against the Indianapolis Colts, they got the job done, but it was they almost squandered their opportunity away. Dare I say, felt a little hollow.
Yeah.
And even though this was a Mark Sanchez-led team against the Washington Redskins team that is on the decline, there was something about this particular game, regardless of opponent, that had substance.
Let me tell you what that substance was.
Please do.
That was the O-line. Because this whole season, It's been killing me personally to watch Carson get less than 2 seconds in the pocket before he has to make some Houdini move. And if he scrambles and he makes a pass like he did to Golden Tate in the end zone, first drive of the game, he's Houdini. But if he scrambles and something goes wrong, we're coming down on Carson. But the O-line gave him some extra time this past week. And it was so good to see because we know that we have a laundry list of injuries. It's a whole VIP party of injured players. It's a whole club of players who are injured. But to see the O-line give him a little more time in the pocket, a little second more.
Just a little something.
That's all he needs because we know he can scramble. We know this is his first season coming back from injury. So that might take a whole entire year just for him mentally to say, you know what? I feel 100% comfortable. So the O-line, I feel like, was that extra little oomph that you recognize because this is their third string quarterback in Mark Sanchez.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. It gave you a little bit more hope for the rest of the season.
I think the O-line is like the lifeblood. Like if you're in a football huddle and you're looking at you want your offensive linemen to be happy, but you want that crazy sick look in their face after they've been mauling people in the run game. Like, we talk about, having Carson Wentz. We don't want him passing like over 50 times. But we want that balance.
Right.
And it finally felt like we got back to basics.
Balanced football.
But even Golden Tate had a quote. He said, tonight just felt really organic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And going back to, last couple of weeks, we've been looking at like, it feels forced. The way they're using Golden Tate feels forced. The way that they're setting up these screens feels forced. Now you're seeing these nice little screens that were set up. You're seeing Golden Tate actually get that yak that we've been talking about. That rapport with Carson Wentz where he threw the ball. They've been on the field for a couple weeks with each other, and for him just like point up the field and just dip and rip, and then Golden Tate making a play like that, that's what you like to see.
And really only in a spot where he could catch it.
Right.
That was such a finesse. That's what Donovan McNabb never had. Donovan McNabb never had that finesse pass. It was always worm burners and bullets. He'd throw it. If you were 4 yards away, he was throwing it 105 miles an hour. That was a nice little communication because it takes a while for the receivers. Doug Peterson was talking in his press conference today about getting Golden Tate more acquainted and more worked into the game plan and everything like that. And he went back and he talked about training camp and the extra reps and everything. Golden Tate didn't get that. He just got here. And we kept talking about a vertical passing game. Where's the vertical passing game? Where's the vertical passing game? You can't grow vertical unless you got your roots down. Because if you don't got your roots down, you're going to get knocked over. Those roots are the offensive line. So when we talk about getting the ball downfield, why is he throwing it to Zach Ertz so much? It's so dink and dunk. Why is he throwing it to Zach Ertz so much? That's how much time he's being allotted by the offensive line. You give him that extra half a second, all of a sudden that lets receivers get an extra couple yards of separation. It's a trickle-down effect. But it all starts with the offensive line. You look at the stats. Adams, with the carries, 4.2 yards per average. I will take that every single time. Clement and his carries, 5.4. Sproles and his limited carries, 5.5. You haven't seen these type of numbers, at least average per carry, for a while from this Eagles offense. And it all stems from the ability of the offensive line to do their job.
And when you're talking about Golden Tate, one thing that I think is interesting is that game against the Redskins, I believe, is going to be his breakout game when you talk about his connection with Carson Wentz. And I'll tell you why. Because when he made that catch in the end zone, for a split second, he was covered so well, I almost thought it was intercepted. When he went for that 2-point conversion, that ball was low.
Oh, he scooped it.
That ball was low, and he still got to it. So what that tells me is that their connection is building. And even when Carson Wentz does something a little bit off, he's there to pick up the pieces and follow through for his boy. That's telling me that those guys, they're studying together, they're practicing hard together, and that connection is only going to grow. So we're seeing this in only maybe his third week with the team. I think it's only going to go up, and this connection is going to really build. Hopefully we see more of it in Dallas.
Yes.
The connection I do love is when, I want Carson nature. Just like brother nature, everybody eats, fam. I mean, you're looking at Golden Tate, 7 targets, 7 receptions, 85 yards, touchdown. Zach Ertz, 10 targets, 9 receptions. Aguilar, 8 targets. Clement got in there. Jeffrey Big first play downs from Jeffrey. Even Jordan Matthews with the touchdown.
Oh, my God.
Dallas got three targets, but you like the ball to be spread around. That's what we were talking about last week, about getting to that third target, getting to the next receiver. I mean, that's what I want to see. I get stoked every time I see that kind of interaction with the offense, because everybody has to feel involved, and you can't key on anybody. But Zach Ertz, 9 for 10 for 83 yards. On the season, Wentz is completing 78.6% of his passes and averaging 8.6 per attempt when targeting Ertz. That is ridiculous. If you go back to that pass in the game, there was 4. We were sitting next to each other. There's 4 defenders around Zach Ertz. And Carson Wentz, that's an elite throw. He trusts his arm, he trusts his ability, and he trusts Ertz. That's the chemistry that you can't just. They've been working on that.
That's what happens when that's your boy. If we're talking about basketball and we're playing street ball and you're my boy, you're you're my girl or whatever, and we got that connection on and off the court.
The give and go, man. It's
done. It's done, and they have that. And the thing is that teams now know that. So hopefully we don't see too much doubles on Ertz in as we try to make a playoff run.
And if you go back to the Saints game, that's exactly what the Saints did. They started doubling Ertz, and you take away Ertz. What does this offense have? And hopefully Golden Tate takes care of that.
I felt like I felt like we saw glimpses for the first time in a very organic way. A reflection of the 2017 team. Doesn't necessarily mean that they look exactly identical, but you looked at something and I remember that. I remember the way this looks. I remember the way this feels. This feels like the 2017 team.
You know what felt the most like the 2017 team to me was the ability to bounce back after something happens to them. When Mark Sanchez comes in, and I was frothing at the mouth. I'm like, I can't wait for this D-line to get to him. And then it takes all of the energy out of the stadium when Adrian Peterson busts off a 90-yard run. They ended the game with less than 100. He ended the game with less than 100 rushing yards. So he busts off a 90-yard run in one run, and the Eagles held him in check the rest of the game. It's that ability. The Eagles were the kings last year of going to the locker room during halftime, figuring it out, and coming back a different team. And that's what I saw yesterday.
I got a stat on that run, actually. Outside of the 90-yard touchdown run for Peterson, Washington had 14 yards on 13 rushing attempts. That's pretty serious.
I can't even lie. I was a little bit shook when I saw that 90-yard touchdown. I was hoping that we were going to see another butt fumble after that. I was shook. I was like, oh, shoot. Adrian Peterson, over 30 years old, doing to us. But then that's a very good point that you made. He ate, and then that was it. He was full for the rest of the game.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's credit to our defense.
And it certainly wasn't a perfect game. There were throws that Carson Wentz missed. There was a screen that he kind of threw that was a little wonky. Doug Peterson didn't necessarily call the best type of game, especially down in the red zone. There were 2 touchdowns there. There's 14 points left on the board right there. When you talk about going for it on 4th down after the penalty that backs you up.
Josh Adams run.
The Josh Adams run, when the entire stadium knew when you were under center that this is exactly the play you're going to run. And honestly, it's the play you should have ran on 1st down. A lot of people say take the points right there. I don't blame Doug for being aggressive. That's just in Doug's nature. But I don't like the play call, because if I know it, and you know it, and you know it. The Redskins sideline, they all know exactly what's coming either, and it wasn't even faked, it wasn't even bootlegged, they let a free runner get in there. And then the Carson Wentz interception when the ball was on the 3 or 4?
Josh Norman.
Yeah. And listen, I want to crucify Wentz for eyeballing the receiver, but in that sort of condensed field, where you really don't have room to look at safety off. They're all up in your face. I can't kill. Josh Norman just made a good play on the ball. I can't kill him for that. But it wasn't a perfect game, but we started to see glimpses. If you can just polish up those things, those little flaws, those little play calling errors, those little dink passes that necessarily didn't get there, you have the opportunity to go down to Dallas against a red-hot Cowboys team that believes in themselves. That's the dangerous part.
And Doug Peterson also talked about the flashes. He said, you're seeing flashes of it. The flashes are a little more consistent now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we have 2 games back-to-back that we won boost our morale against not-so-great teams.
Right.
So, whatever. We still got the wins. It boosts our morale. But I'm a little more hard on the team, though. Like, the whole Zach Brown on Josh Adams, to me, was like an anathema occurrence that should have never happened ever. To me, it was horrible. I was pissed off, and I was screaming at the television, but that's just how passionate I am as a fan. Now, the interception, I feel like Carson, he did have an interception against Dallas the first go-around. I don't want to see that again.
Right.
So there are some good things, there are some bad things, and hopefully it gets cleaned up in this week of practice before we get to Dallas, because the first week when we played Dallas, to everyone, Dallas was trash. Then they beat us. Then they beat the Saints. Now we're looking at them.
Got hot.
Now we're looking at them a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. So these are things that must get cleaned up. Carson Wentz, if he looks one way, looks another way, no one's there. Don't force it when you know it's going to be. I'd rather see him try to make a Houdini type of run play than force it to someone that you see clearly is not going to get your ball.
Yeah, and then think about the defense, Dallas' defense. I mean, they're averaging like 18 a game. I mean, they're playing pretty sound football defensively. They have a pass rush, and I think that young secondary is finally like gelling. I mean, they paid a lot of like heavy capital in the last couple drafts in the last couple years, and it's kind of paying off for them. And then they got Van Der Esch and then Jalen Smith. I mean, those guys they're playing good football in the middle of the field too, as well. Like these screen games, like those guys can run sideline to sideline. And then they get back Sean Lee, Mr. Soft Tissue Man, but he's a leader of their team. So I think offensively, I'm still not scared of Dallas offensively, and that mainly speaks to Dak. They do have a ground and pound running game if you get them started, but let's the one thing I just don't want to happen, no one get hurdled by Zeke.
Oh
no,
my
it
God.
can't happen again.
Oh my God.
That can't happen again.
No.
The football season is a funny thing, right? We go into September and we think to ourselves, my God, we have 17 weeks of football. Can you believe we've got all this football in front of us? And all of a sudden you blink and it's the bye week. It's it's the middle of the season. And you're like, wow, season's half over. Lots changed since the start of the season until now. And then you blink again and you're in this position. Moral of the story is a lot can change from now until the end of the season. Think about the journey that we've been on. Defending Super Bowl champions coming in, favorites in the NFC East. All of a sudden the Redskins start to get hot. Right? They take over the NFC East. The Cowboys are struggling. All of a sudden, that flip-flops. The Cowboys get hot in the middle of the season. Eagles start to lose. They can't win 2 games in a row. And now, all of a sudden, the Eagles are within striking distance. It's so weird, the ebbs and the flows. To think that Washington Redskins team for so long was at the top of the NFC East. And then the Giants were at the bottom, and then they started to win some games and just beat the Bears.
Yeah.
There's 4 games left. A lot can change between now and then. But if it started right here, right now, your number 1 seed is the Rams at 11-1. Your number 2 seed is the Saints at 10-2. I think we can all agree, 1 or 2, those are your top 2 teams in the NFC. Your 8-4 Bears have the 3rd seed, and then 4th seed representing the NFC East at 7-5 is the Dallas Cowboys. Now, as I go through the remainder of the seeding and the remainder of the records, think about how close we are to all of these teams. Cowboys, 4th seed, NFC East, 7-5. Seahawks at the 5th seed, 7-5. Vikings at the 6th, the final wild card spot at 6-5-1. 6-5-1.
And guess who plays each other this week?
Who's that?
Seattle and the Vikings. So
Seattle and the Vikings. Okay.
As Eagle fans, we have to become part of the 12th man. Will be the 13th man rooting for the Seahawks, because if you take down the Vikings, that's even better for us.
Panthers, Eagles, Redskins, in that order, outside looking in, all at 6-6. So all of a sudden, that muddied middle section, right, where everybody was kind of in the hunt of the NFC has now narrowed down basically to the Mark Sanchez-led Washington Redskins, the Panthers, who have the tiebreaker over the Eagles but can't seem to get out of their own way, can't seem to win a game. The Eagles are the 8th seed, and meanwhile, like, you look at those Vikings and the Seahawks and the Bears, they're even sliding down. So there's not only an opportunity to win the NFC East, there is an opportunity to backdoor the wild card spot. Moral of the story is just get into the playoffs.
Just get us there.
Just get us there.
Just get us there.
Because once you're there, it's a whole different ballgame. Anything can happen.
I mean, look at last season.
Yes.
Hungry dogs run faster. The team knew, just get us there. I don't care if you feel like we're the underdogs. Just get us there. We're going to prove you wrong anyway. So that's the same mentality that this team needs to take on as we head into Dallas this upcoming week. Just get us in the door. Get us that same energy that we had last season, that same energy when Malcolm was ripping everyone a new one, saying, like, listen, this can't happen too much longer. Same energy. Just get us there. Now, question for y'all. In order to beat Dallas, we have to what?
Balanced game plan, run-pass ratio. It worked against the Giants, both in the first time and the second time. He has a tendency to get away from that because you control time of possession, you leave the offense off the field. And let's face it, the offensive line, which you talked about earlier, kind of being the key in all this, this felt organic. Why did it? Because of the offensive line. Offensive lines love to attack. When you're pass blocking, you're protecting, you're backing up, you're not attacking. You ask any offensive lineman in the league, they love smashing a dude moving forward. And that's in the run game. Use Josh Adams the way the Cowboys use Zeke. Ask no more of Carson Wentz than the Cowboys ask of Dak Prescott. Let the wide receivers go out there and buy them an extra couple seconds like the Cowboys offensive line has been doing for the last couple of years, and you will all of a sudden be going toe-to-toe with these guys. I firmly believe that.
I mean, you really got to shut down the run. I mean, it's all about Zeke, aside from hurdling somebody and putting up yards. I mean, once you get that running game going, Zeke is a monster. Like, he wants to be fed. He wants to keep on being fed. So I feel like if you shut down the run game, force Dak to beat you, he's not going to beat you vertically. They got Amari Cooper. He's doing his little out routes, and he's a great route runner. I think he's given their offense a spark, but I think it's starting to. We have to get back to Eagles football. And I think it starts this week. I think these guys came in, when they thought they had them beat, but they got embarrassed. They got embarrassed on national television. One game that you have, the games that you have circled on your schedule every year is the Cowboys game. Mm-hmm. You lost and got embarrassed. This is your second time to redeem yourself, right the ship, and win the NFC East.
Right. You're saying the O-line, which is absolutely right. You're saying stop the run, which is absolutely right. I'm saying, like, the unsung hero, if we win this game, will be the defensive line.
That's where I was at.
Because, listen, last time we played the Cowboys, do you remember how awful our D-line looked? It looked like they were creating holes for Zeke. It looked like they were getting their play calls from Jason. Mm-hmm. It was like, what are y'all doing? I understand injuries, but don't just part the Red Seas to let the running back get through. Yeah. So to me, if we win this game, I'm going to speak in the positive. When we win this game, they, to me, will be the unsung hero because it was so hideous watching them the last time we played Dallas.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I completely agree with you in the fact that the way that when we played the Cowboys last time we played them, our goal was to try and make them a one-dimensional team. They didn't have Amari Cooper at the time, so they only had Zeke as a real offensive. He was their key offensive weapon that they used against us. Now they've got the addition of Amari Cooper, so they've got multiple layers to this offense. I feel like if the defensive line can disrupt everything that's happening, that's the key to this game.
Exactly.
I'm going to add something to your key to the game right here, because I feel like there is a stark difference in the way this defense plays when they're behind and with a lead. So wasn't it nice to see the Eagles go down on the opening drive, score a touchdown, and kind of set the tempo? Because getting home with the front four of the defensive line, having them pin their ears back, and having everybody else drop back in the coverage doesn't make much sense when you're not playing with the lead.
Right.
This is why Andy Reid fell in love with the wide nine back then when he hired Jim Washburn before he actually hired his defensive coordinator. Is he fell in love with the idea of, look, I know my offense can put up points. So what in turn I need this defense to do is get wide, pin their ears back, and go after the quarterback, cause turnovers. Just pin their ears back. Just go after the quarterback because you know they're going to be throwing the ball because they're going to be playing from behind. What have offense has been doing against the Eagles this year? Getting up on them early and then churning out the run. Defensive line is getting tired. Defensive line is getting tired. Jim Schwartz is playing the sticks. He's not aggressive. He's not attacking. So 100% the defensive line is super important. But getting that early lead.
Absolutely.
And allowing the defensive line to do their thing just as equally.
And it was so refreshing.